Hi everybody and welcome to my kitchen. I am super excited because we're starting a brand new series today, and this month it's all about sweet treats. Since Lent is now over, we don't need to worry that we can indulge in these delicious treats. My recipe for today is a little bit more technical than what we've done so far, but it's absolutely delicious. It's a classic French recipe. I'm talking about eclairs. This recipe may sound a little bit scary, but don't worry, we'll go through it together. We'll be fine. With that, let's look at our ingredients. There are three components to this recipe. You've got your choux pastry, you've got your crème pâtissière, and apologies to any French speakers because I just totally butchered that, and your chocolate glazing. We're gonna look at the ingredients of each of our components individually, but for a consolidated list, you can check the description below. The crème pâtissière is the first component we're going to make because we need to let it cool. And the ingredients that you need are milk, flour, corn flour, sugar, 3 egg yolks, and vanilla extract. Crème pâte is essentially a thickened custard, so it's a very simple recipe. First, I'm gonna separate my eggs. Don't throw your egg whites away because you can use them for loads of different recipes, maybe like a nice meringue or a pavlova. Let me know below if you'd like to see a recipe for that. Now in a heat-proof bowl, I'm gonna put in my egg yolks and my sugar. And we're gonna whisk this together until it forms a bit of a paste. Next, I'm gonna add in my flour and my corn flour, but I wanna make sure that I sieve them because I wanna get rid of any lumps. And whisk it up. Next, I'm going to heat up my milk. We wanna heat it up just until it starts foaming. We don't want to boil it. You can see my milk starts to bubble now, which means it's hot enough, so I'm gonna take it off the heat. And the next step, you need to work quickly here. I'm gonna pour in my hot milk into my egg mixture, but you wanna make sure that you whisk constantly. You don't want the hot milk to cook or scramble your eggs. Start with a little bit at a time and then you can put in the rest. Now I can add in my vanilla extract, mix it in. Now we're gonna put our egg mixture back into the pot and we're gonna heat it up. We want this to almost come to the boil, but we're still gonna constantly whisk. We just want the corn flour and the flour to become kind of activated and thicken the cream. If you happen to get any curdling when you were pouring your hot milk in, it's not really a big deal. You just put your mixture through a strainer and that will get rid of any lumps. This will take anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. Just make sure you keep whisking. You don't want this to burn. I can already feel that my sauce is getting thicker. I can feel a bit of resistance as I'm whisking, so we're almost there. It's all coming together now. Just keep whisking. When it gets to this point, we want to whisk for about 30 seconds and then we're done. Okay, that's it. Now we're gonna transfer the mixture to a clean bowl, just to let it cool down. I have some cling film which I'm going to put on top, but you want to make sure that your cling film is touching the top of your pastry cream because as it cools you don't want it to form like a little film or a crust on top. So now this can go in the fridge for 1 to 2 hours to cool. My crème pâte is chilling in the fridge, having a fantastic time, so next it's time to make our choux pastry. But first I'm going to prepare a template. This is going to help me when I'm piping my choux into my eclair shapes. If you have a steady hand, you won't need this, but I'm not that person, so a template will really help me to do all my eclairs to the same size and shape. So all I've done is I've cut some baking paper. I've got 4 because I'm going to be using 2 different baking sheets. My eclairs are going to be 8 centimeters in length and around 2 centimeters wide when I'm piping them. You also don't want your eclairs to be piped too close together because they will expand quite a bit. Just make sure you take that into account when you're making your template. This recipe should give me around 12 eclairs altogether. So I'm doing 6 per sheet, 3 at the top and 3 at the bottom. Don't be like me. Clearly I don't know how to measure, so I had to do a couple of scribbles, but I think we're there now. Let's look at the ingredients that we're going to need to make our choux pastry. The ingredients for a choux pastry are as follows. You need some water, flour, sugar, eggs, and butter, which I've cubed. Whenever I bake, I always use Irish butter, which is already salted. If you're using unsalted butter, you can add in an extra pinch of salt. First, I'm gonna mix my flour and my sugar. And next, I'm gonna put my hob on a medium to high heat, and I'm gonna throw in my water and my cubed butter. And I'm gonna heat this up until the butter melts. The idea is that the butter should melt before my water boils because I don't want to lose the water through evaporation. My butter is now melted and my water's come to the boil. Next, I'm gonna quickly sieve in my flour. It's off the heat and stir to combine. Now that my flour is all incorporated, I'm gonna put this back in the heat and cook it for anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute, maybe a minute and a half. And stir constantly. We're just trying to cook away that raw flour, and it should come together as a cohesive ball of dough. Depending on your heat, this may happen very quickly. And a good indication that you're at the right place is when your flour starts forming a film at the bottom of your pan or on the sides, which for me, it looks like it's already happening. It looks like we're done. Off the heat. I'm gonna put my mixture into the bowl of my stand mixer. You can totally do this by hand. I'm feeling lazy today, so I'm gonna go stand mixer. There we go. And all I want to do with this is cool my dough a little bit because I'm gonna add the eggs now in a minute, and this is too hot, it's gonna scramble my eggs. You will see all of the steam escaping from your dough, and that's good that we're trying to cool it. After about a minute, my dough should be cool enough now. I can feel the side of the bowl isn't that hot anymore, and yeah, it feels not that warm to the touch anymore. So now we can start adding in our eggs. I want to give you now one piece of warning. When I add in my eggs, the mixture is gonna look like an absolute mess. It's all gonna come together, it's gonna look like it's curdled, it's gonna look like split sauce. But that is fine, that's what happens as you keep whisking in and incorporating the eggs, it will all come together. You can see how the whole dough is kind of splitting apart, but that's okay, keep whisking, it will get there in the end. My dough is already looking better, so I'm gonna add in my second egg. I wanna show you here, this is what I meant before. My mixture is just like a complete mess, but it's okay. Once you keep whisking, it's all gonna come together. But I wanna take this opportunity also to make sure that I'm scraping down the bowl and make sure that everything is coming together. Let's keep going. Okay, it's been about a minute and I think it's ready now. I want to show you the consistency of my mixture. It's come together nicely and it forms, it's kind of like a thick paste, but it falls slowly. In fact, I'm tempted to add another egg because this is looking a little bit thicker than it should be. At this point though, I'm gonna crack in a new egg, whisk it a bit and add it bit by bit because I think we're almost there, but not quite. And this is one of those finicky things about this recipe. You really kind of have to judge when your dough is at the right consistency. Ooh. That's a bit runny. So I don't know if you saw that, but clearly I didn't whisk my eggs enough because when I went to pour it, I didn't have a lot of control and almost the whole thing just poured into my pastry. Unfortunately, that means that now my pastry is too runny. If I try to pipe this, it's not gonna hold its shape. It's gonna spread out everywhere and make an absolute mess. Fortunately, there is a way that we can fix this. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna quickly make half a batch of the, let's call it the starter of the choux before I added in the eggs, and then mix it in through here, and that should help to thicken up my pastry. So even if you make mistakes, there's ways to save it. I've added about half of my half batch, and I think I'm finally at the consistency that we want. You want something that takes a while to fall, but then it falls in kind of like nice ribbons, like this. This is pipeable, and also once you pipe it into your little logs, it's gonna hold its shape, but it's not gonna spread out everywhere. So I think we're looking good. Let me clean up, and then we'll start piping. And also I've got my oven preheating to 200 degrees. Looks like we're ready. Let's pray to the baking gods that our eclairs puff up nicely. I've got my template and my baking sheet ready, and I also have a piping bag. I don't have a piping tip big enough to pipe my eclairs, so I'm just gonna cut off the top of the piping bag, and this should work perfect anyway. I like to peel it back or fold it back a bit on itself, and it makes it easier to hold. Get that down to the end of your bag. And if you shake it like this, you'll get rid of some of the air bubbles. We definitely don't want them in there when we're piping. Another handy tip when you're piping, I like to have a glass near me so I can rest my piping bag in there while I do other bits. Also, I like to just grab a little bit of the leftover dough, my finger, and I will put it on my baking sheet and my baking pan. And then this way, it's not moving about as I pipe. A little bit on each corner. Okay, and let's pipe. When you go to the end, just put it back like this, and it falls onto itself. Just apply some even and constant pressure, and it really helps that we did our guides because it gives me a good reference point. And don't worry if they look a little bit misshapen. When we put the egg wash on, we can fix a lot of these little mistakes. So I'm just gonna do that with my other baking sheet. This last one might just make it. We did it. For my egg wash, I just have some beaten egg and a little bit of milk. And using a pastry brush, I have a silicone one, which is great because it doesn't leave little hairs on your eclairs. Just lightly go over your eclairs. This will give them shine. You can use this to kind of shape your eclairs a little bit. You see these pointy bits that we left at the end? You can press them in now. You definitely don't want to let them stick out because they will burn in the oven. We're finished with our egg wash. Our ovens come to temperature, so we're going to put this in the middle of the oven and bake them at 200 degrees for 15 minutes. And then we're going to drop the temperature down to 180 degrees and cook them for another 20 to 30 minutes. Bye babies! My timer just went off, so I'm gonna take out my eclairs from the oven. Look at how nice and puffy they got. You can see this one's got a little bit more color because they were on the top, but they all puffed up very nicely, and I think they are perfect. So I'm gonna transfer them to the cooling rack, let them cool for a few minutes, and then we can fill them and dip them. You may not need to do this, but if you're unsure whether your eclairs are hollow on the inside, you can actually take them and with a skewer make a little hole. This will let the steam escape as well, so it will help to dry your eclairs even while you're cooling. Don't they look perfect? Success! While my eclair shells are cooling, I'm gonna go ahead and prepare my chocolate glaze that's gonna go on top. I've also taken out the crème pâte out of the fridge because now it's nice and hard, but I wanted to soften up a little bit actually before I pipe it, because otherwise it's gonna be too difficult. But for our chocolate glaze, all we need is some chocolate, which I'm gonna chop now quite finely, and some heavy cream. And now I'm gonna heat up my cream just until it starts bubbling. Now that my milk is hot enough, I'm gonna pour it on top of my chocolate. After a few minutes, I'm gonna give it a whisk. Just make sure all the chocolate is dissolved, and that is our chocolate glazing. And that's our chocolate glazing. How easy was that? Now I'm gonna get my assembly line ready and we'll put everything together. Here's my crème pâte. You can see it's actually quite stiff. Let me take off this plastic. I need this to be pipeable, so I'm just gonna give it a quick whisk and then put it into my piping bag. It's quite firm, but the whisk will help us to make this more pipeable. I have a piping bag ready, and I have this special tip for filling in donuts or filling in eclairs. If you don't have a tip like this, what you can do is actually cut your eclair in half and fill in your eclair that way. You don't want to overfill your piping bag because then it makes it really difficult to handle. All right? And keep tasting your pastry cream as you go along. Take your eclair. I'm gonna fill mine from the bottom. You could also do it from the sides if you want. There's already some holes in there that I poked to let the steam or to help them dry out when I took them out of the oven. So I'm just gonna make the hole a little bit bigger using the same skewer. I'm going to pipe in my pastry cream. I like to make sure my eclairs are filled to the point of almost exploding with pastry cream, because who wants a half-filled eclair? Get it right in there and squeeze. You're going to feel your eclair balloon, and also obviously the weight will increase, and keep piping until you see the pastry cream coming out of your hole. There we go. Once that's filled, just give your chocolate a quick mix, and you can dip in your eclair. Shake off any excess. And there's our first one. And just continue doing that with the rest of your eclairs. All of my eclairs are now assembled. You may have seen during the time lapse that I changed my strategy a little bit. Because my chocolate was getting hard while I was piping each eclair, I decided to first fill them all and then dip them in the chocolate, and that worked a lot better. As I mentioned earlier, also I like to have my eclairs totally filled with pastry cream. So full disclosure, I ended up making a second batch of the pastry cream, and I had just enough to fill all of my eclairs. Having said all of that, I think the time has finally come to taste one. So here it is, the final result. I think it looks absolutely perfect. Nice layer of chocolate on top. I know it's filled to the brim with pastry cream as well, so it's gonna be delicious. Let's go inside and see what it looks like. I can hear how crisp that shell is. Oh, look at that. That is exactly what I wanted. There's literally no more room for any cream. Oh, perfect. Oh, I'm so excited. This is absolutely divine. Oh, the pastry cream with the contrast of the dark chocolate is so extremely tasty. There's a little perfect parcel of choux pastry. Oh, I could eat these for days. That is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. These are absolutely amazing. It is a bit of a more technical recipe and takes a little bit of work, but the end result is absolutely 100% worth it. Please make sure you try it and let me know how you get on in the comments down below. Like the video if you like this recipe and make sure you're subscribed. I've got amazing, delicious sweet treats coming up for the next coming weeks, so you want to make sure you don't miss it. With that, I leave you and enjoy. And these are coming with me.